Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Welcome to The Ray Taylor Show, where I bring you the reviews of the latest movies and TV shows, as well as classic and foreign films. I'm your host, Ray Taylor, and on this podcast, I'll be talking about all things film and television. Whether you're looking for a new show to binge or want to know if that blockbuster is worth the trip to the theater, or just want to hear my thoughts on a classic or foreign film, I've got you covered. So join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for new episodes, and let's dive into the world of film and television together. On today's episode, I am talking about The Ratcatcher. Came out this year, 2023, written and directed by Wes Anderson, based on Roald Dahl short stories, writings, different things that he wrote. The stars Richard Ayoade, Ralph Fiennes, and Rupert Friend. In this short film, in an English village, a reporter and a mechanic listen to a rat catcher explain his clever plan to outwit his prey. So this is like the third short film in a series of four short films that Wes Anderson did on Netflix based on Roald Dahl's short stories. And this is my least favorite so far of that series. It tweaks the style in a little bit. Like there's a interesting elements that Wes Anderson is implementing to tell these stories, including a new element where he literally has characters narrating the actual words, narrating the actual story, almost audiobook style, while combining with Wes Anderson's visual style. In the previous short film, The Swan, Wes Anderson's visual style was very minimal, which made the narration almost cause what you're imagining in your head that you would normally imagine in your head when you're listening to an audiobook or reading a book. It allowed you to lay that imagination over this minimalist style that you're seeing Wes Anderson do. In the first film, it's more complex. Both first two films have a very much like a stage production style to it, whereas The Swan, there's literal stage hands that are part of it. And in the first film, the stages, set dressings change, costuming changes. And in this one, it's probably the more standard visually that you would see from Wes Anderson. Like it feels like it's shot on a location more so than it feels like it's shot on a stage or shot with a very minimal look to it. And the moments where your imagination kind of adds to the visuals, there's a couple moments of that. So the balances of the different elements are changed in this one than the previous two. And in my opinion, is why I like it the least. Also the story. I'm not a biggest fan of the story. And also there's a moment where it jumps out of the story, which Wes Anderson loves to do, where he has these framing gimmicks of telling a story where it's like, which you see in the first two, where the first one, it's like Roald Dahl narrating and then jumping into the story that leads to the story. And in this one, it's just like we're in the story, and then there's a moment where we jump out and Roald Dahl speaks to camera. And then we go back in. And already within that same moment, there's other confusing aspects of it, which kind of reminded me of Asteroid City, reminded me of the aspects of Asteroid City that I wasn't a big fan of, or the issues that I had with Asteroid City. Let's take a short break from this episode. Hey, loyal listeners of The Ray Taylor Show. You know, it's one thing to tune in and engage with the content I personally create for you. But what if I told you there's a way to wear your fandom? Introducing our exclusive line of merchandise. inspired directly by the vibes and visuals of this very podcast. From stylish t-shirts that'll make you stand out in the crowd to our eco-friendly, biodegradable phone cases adorned with artwork inspired by the show. You can now carry a piece of the Ray Taylor Show wherever you go. Whether you're looking to make a fashion statement or protect your phone with some flair, or simply want to show off your love of the show, our merchandise has got you covered. Ready to rock our gear? Head on over to inspireddisorder.com and get yours today. Wear the show, be the vibe. Now let's get back to the show. But still, this very interesting short film. Again, short run time, 17 minutes. So it's definitely worth a watch. And maybe the combination of elements works better for you in this one than it does for me. But for me, it's my least favorite. They are kind of going down as far as my enjoyment. Although I think the first two are doing different things. And The Swan, the more I think about it, the more just style-wise, I think he really did a magic trick in that short film that is implemented just a little bit in a couple moments here, but then kind of goes off the rails as well. I did like the darker tone of this short film as well. In some ways, it's almost like a horror film, like a Wes Anderson horror film. And the way the story is told relies less on the imagination of the viewer, despite some great moments in this that do evoke that kind of same magic. It felt less like a stage play as well, right? Felt more like it was on location, more than the previous films. And there's a moment in this where actors start playing other characters just out of nowhere, and then there's also a stop motion moment that just feels like it goes off the rails and then completely jumps out of the story, so we see Roald Dahl, and it's just like I think it's just Wes Anderson doing too much, right? A little bit too chaotic and confusing and ultimately unnecessary. I don't think it added anything to the story, which the story itself is kind of basic, so maybe he was just trying to make it more interesting by having these sudden changes. But aside from that, I wasn't necessarily just a fan of the story itself, right? A rat catcher who looks like a rat person, right? It just a bit uninteresting. I do like that it's kind of close to a horror film, like the closest to a horror film that we've seen Wes Anderson do. I do appreciate that, but ultimately wasn't a big fan. I do want to talk about spoilers, some specifics. So if you don't want to get spoiled, this is your warning. And if you don't mind spoilers, you already seen it. Here we go. The rat catcher has rat-like features, right? His teeth, his hair, his ears, his eyes, his nose wiggles when he smells the air. Very rat-like type of person. Definitely more performance in this one, right? Which I don't think works as well as the previous two, right? There is some good imaginary moments where he's holding a rat in one hand and holding a ferret in the other hand, and he puts them in his shirt. And it's like there's no rat or ferret, and he doesn't perform like there's this fight going on in his shirt. But because of the narration, you're seeing it, like it does evoke that magic that we saw a lot of in The Swan. So I do appreciate that moment. There's also another moment where he's like showing the poisoned oats and kind of shaking them. There's kind of that magical moment there as well. So there is a level of imagination similar to The Swan, but not mixed with the minimal visuals of The Swan. Where in this one, there's definitely more performance, just with dashes of imagination, kind of letting the narration illustrate the imaginary parts in your own head, but not quite as much as the previous film. Let's take a quick break from the show. Listeners, are you ready to take your experience with The Ray Taylor Show to the next level? Dive into Inspired Disorder Plus. For just $5 a month, you unlock a world of premium content that's sure to satisfy your every entertainment and artistic craving. Imagine enjoying The Ray Taylor Show, a full week completely ad-free in both audio and video formats. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Get exclusive access to the live painting archive, be the first to lay your eyes on the new releases from the many faces, and enjoy members-only discounts and deals that'll have you coming back for more. With a treasure trove that includes a podcast back catalog boasting 14 unique shows and over 600 episodes, personal insights through Ray Taylor's own blog, that's me, creative writing to spark your imagination, and interactive Ask Me Anything section. Inspired Disorder Plus is a feast for the curious mind. Ready to elevate your entertainment game? Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become a member of an exclusive club. Dive in, indulge, and inspire your senses. Now let's get back to the show. And then, kind of out of nowhere, there's a stop motion of this rat that is now speaking for the rat catcher, and now other actors take on different parts. So it starts to get just like unnecessarily confusing, and it's all about how he's going to kill this rat without using his hands or whatever. But then like the rat starts speaking for the rat catcher. The other two people, like the mechanic and the other guy, start speaking their different characters. It got really confusing. And then it jumps out of the story to, you see Roald Dahl, which hasn't been in this at all. So you have to have seen the previous two to know that there's that character on the outside of these stories. But completely kind of just takes me out. Right? It's just kind of Wes Anderson adding too many layers unnecessarily, right? I prefer the minimal style of the Swan by far to this. This is almost maximal in some ways. And then after this rat catcher kills the rat by biting it, he goes on talking about how rat blood is used in licorice, to the point where it just disturbs the other guys, and then he just leaves. It just feels like so random. Just, I don't know. The actual story was not great. And just kind of boring. My least favorite so far, right? There's moments that I like, moments where the imagination kind of fills in the narrative mixed with on-screen imagery like the last one, but I think Swan is a much better use of that magic. And then also when it went to stop motion and then the actors start playing different roles, it broke for me. And then jumping out of the story just completely took me out altogether. And just the story overall just less interesting. Like a story of a rat catcher that doesn't catch any rats, but kills one with his mouth, and then talks about how rat blood is used in licorice. Like, it just feels so random and unnecessary. And this story was based on a story, obviously, Roald Dahl wrote while living in Amsterdam, writing short stories that were inspired by the area and the people. So, I don't know. Out of all of the stories he wrote while in Amsterdam, this was the one they chose to adapt for some reason. I don't know. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was him trying to do kind of a horror movie type of a thing, but I didn't really like it. But I want to thank everybody for tuning into The Ray Taylor Show. I do hope you enjoyed my thoughts on The Rat Catcher. Don't forget to tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for new movie and TV show reviews, and join the conversation by leaving a comment or rating on your favorite podcast platform or over on youtube.com/inspireddisorder, where all these episodes are available in video formats. Until next time, don't eat the oats. Subscribe to The Ray Taylor Show on YouTube and everywhere podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Purchase Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.